Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the channel where you join me today in sunny Spain with the new Toyota GR Supra. Today is going to be my first drive, an experience behind the wheel of a car that I'm sure many of you know I have a personal interest in. I've ordered one just like this, the A90 Edition, the special launch generation of what is basically one of the most long-awaited and I think hyped cars of the decade. Well, today I'm going to give you a buyer's perspective on the new Supra, some of the foibles, some of the aspects of it that are utterly brilliant. So let's get started then and go through it all. It's the new Toyota GR Supra. You are joining me today outside of Madrid where the skies are clear, the views are immense, and I'm surrounded by some lovely roads to go out and drive to discover this car that's been a long time in the making. Later on, I'm going to give you more insight and thoughts from my side why I've chosen to order and buy one of these, but we'll kick off with a bit of an introduction before focusing on some of the hot topics that surround it. And the new Supra is a car that splits opinion. It is very polarizing on a few different areas. So it's a car that's been developed alongside BMW. That means in many ways it shares BMW components and technology. Some people love that, some people hate it. What about the fact that for it being a Japanese sports car, it's actually built by Magna Steyr in Austria? It's a sports car, but it's a sports car that you can only have as an automatic. There's no manual gearbox option available. And I think lastly, although I think it's a great looking thing, very unique and distinct in its styling, on the exterior of the bodywork, there are actually quite a lot of fake vents. I'm not the biggest fan of those, but let's talk more about what we can do with them. So I think we'll kick off then with an introduction of the new Supra. To go for a walk around then and pick out some of the highlights that stand out to me about the car, and one of those are the proportions, the golden ratio as it's called, the 1.55 ratio that compares the wheelbase of the car to its track. That's been decided to be the ultimate, the optimum for a sports car. When you're looking at this, you've got the elongated bonnet, but the roofline is a fastback style swooping towards the ducktail spoiler. The design itself is very much inspired from Toyota's FT1 concept that was launched a number of years back, but some features like the headlights, for example, with those 6 bulbs inside, and the running light that comes all the way around and swoops towards the nose cone have come straight from that car. As we come around, you've got, well, quite a few of these fake closed up vents. We'll talk more about those a little bit later on. Then you get towards the door cards, a dual skin almost for the door. Not sure I've seen that on anything else really. Around the back though, one of the prettiest angles if you ask me. I think this car with these ginormous bulging haunches, but also the integration of that boot-lid spoiler into the rear deck, the hatch that opens up, and then you've got the 3D shaping to the tail lights, which how the car is parked right now with the light, have a look at the shadows. You've got that glint of red where the sun is catching and coming through the tail light. Those are very, very nice. Then down below, the aggressive diffuser with these very large tailpipes, a statement of intent going on back there too. And this car, the A90 Edition in the satin grey paintwork, is also looking pretty special in the light right now. And this is the spec that I've gone for on my car. So it'll be this colour with the red leather interior, just like we see it here. One of the funny things to me though about the Supra is, of course, this is the car that I know best at this stage. The previous generation, the Mark IV, the one that's probably the most famous for being in the Fast and the Furious movies, etc., that car was launched when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and it went out of production about 20 years ago. There are a few small carryovers from the previous generation into this car, and one of those is the logo, the Supra logo, where the S is a bit like some of the corners on the Nürburgring, but it's the logo taken from the previous generation. To show you the interior quickly, this is where the BMW starts about this really for me. When you're looking around here, all of the controls are basically taken from the Z4, the likes of the steering wheel, all the light controls, many of the interactions that you actually have with the car, with the exception of the dashboard. This is a Toyota specific dashboard. But if we just come through, pop open the engine bay, a double pull, just like in a BMW it has to be said. And this is a theme that carries over, and there are significant benefits to it. But here we've got the engine, the 3-litre inline-6 twin-scroll turbo, 340 horsepower, 335 brake horsepower, and about 500 newton meters of torque. That means this car, all rear-wheel drive, the 8-speed ZF Auto, does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles per hour in just 4.3 seconds, and on to a top speed of 250 kilometers per hour, 155 miles per hour, the governed limited top speed. Now, lots has been said, for example, example, about the dual catches. Yes, it keeps the bonnet more secure, but perhaps that's just taken from BMW. And inside here, there are BMW logos galore. When you start digging in and looking at components, of course, the engine cover itself has the Toyota badge worn up there. You've got Toyota badges too, but ultimately the car is built alongside the Z4. Now, to me, that's not really a problem. To me, I think the fact that it's developed with BMW means it has the opportunity to work with what's already a great platform with the Z4 and great technology in terms of the interior that we're going to be discovering. I'm a big fan of BMWs. I like BMW cars, so I have absolutely no complaints about that link and that tie-up. I think there are other people out enjoying today's sunshine on the bicycles, whereas we're going to be driving along the road in this. So the BMW connection, that's not a problem for me at all in any way. I've got the key here, which is actually, unsurprisingly, basically a BMW key. As opposed to a more traditional Toyota key. Yes, it's got a Toyota badge on it, but hey, anyway, that's not too much of a problem. So, I think we should go out for a drive. There's plenty more to offer some thoughts on those vents later on, and my opinion on why I've gone for one, but let's take it out to experience it on the road for the first time in an A90 Edition and find out what it's like. Now for the very first bit of driving, I've got the car in full automatic normal mode, and it makes a huge difference when we go up to sport mode, which I'll do quite shortly. So this road has lots of nice, gentle, some tighter, undulating, smooth tarmac. Basically, it's a perfect place to be driving a car like this, and we'll get started. I've got a head-up display. The digital dash is actually really cool as well, the way it's designed. I'll show you this in more detail when we go through the interior afterwards. Things you notice straight away. Seating position is really good. Steering wheel, quite a thin grip on the sides, especially when comparing to, say, a Z4 M40i with an M steering wheel. The window line is quite narrow. You've got a small viewpoint equally out the side windows, but that's what gives it such a good look from the outside, the way it's so sporty in terms of appearance. It does mean, though, that when you're stepping into the car, you genuinely need to watch out for this bit of the roof line between the, or behind the A-pillar. You can quite easily tap your head against it. It's soft, but I've been known to do that at least once or twice while filming the video so far. Cruising along, though, we've got the suspension all in the normal comfort mode as well. It's adaptive suspension. You can change it and you can configure it, but it just cruises. It's a daily driver when you want it to be. And I think in my garage, this is the intention. This is going to be the car that I basically daily drive. It's a bit of fun when you want it to be fun, but it's a car you can just cruise and waft along in, and it feels small on the road. It feels small and easy to maneuver. The turning circle is great. It's an easy, relaxed drive, and that's what you want from a daily driver. Then, however, you've got one very big sport button in the central console. So if I just give this a press, at the moment it will put everything into sport mode with the exception of going into manual. So that kind of does in one swoop a setting into individual, which you can then configure in terms of the damping, the powertrain, the throttle response. And then you can put the gear shifter over to the left and start using the paddles to downshift. We've got 8 speeds. And this is where you start to get some more of the noise from the car. And yes, of course, being the 3-litre inline 6, it's a very familiar noise from different BMW engines. But you do get a lot of pops and crackles out of it on the overrun, on the downshift. We need to warm up the engine a little bit for the moment. But just starting to hold a little bit more speed through the corners. What this car does is balance everything really well together. The chassis, the power, the suspension, it all fits. It makes for a package that comes together as you, well, basically as you want it to be if you're out driving in a normal environment. Just drop some gears, so you can hear a bit more of the noise out of it. Up towards the red line there, just shy of 7,000 RPM or so, I believe. It's agile, it's small, it's pointy, it makes you want to kind of dart around with it. It's a car that mixes daily driving with fun, smiley entertainment, I think we could say. And you can feel also that it's firmed up when you go into sport mode. The difference on some of the, well, this isn't a bumpier section, but on some of the bumpier sections is quite dramatic. Let's go down to second gear. This is a road clearly popular with cyclists as well as with drivers, which is not a surprise because the two tend to come hand in hand. Lots of ups and downs, lots of undulations, lots of tighter corners, lots of opportunities to enjoy, and most importantly, some lovely weather. I can say that the climate control and air conditioning is also doing exactly what I'd like it to. So in here you've got the iDrive style operating system with all the controls and functionality. You actually have adaptive cruise control as well, which is quite a nice thing to have on a car like this. The digital displays, lots of comfort features, things that make for a good overall kind of driving experience. And there, some of the crackles coming out of it. And plenty of go. You know, I think Doug DeMuro said this in his video about the quirks and features. It's not wanting for more power. The car is plenty powerful enough for what it's going to be used for, and this is where it also gets quite interesting in terms of where it can go, what can be done with it, what the potential is to tune with this car. And well, I'm quite enjoying my first drive. I'm not going to lie, it's what I hoped it was going to be. I say first drive, I did drive the prototype. I did drive a camouflage prototype on track, so I had an opportunity to experience it in that environment, and now I'm out driving it on the road. Now this is where I think the manual topic comes up. Personally, being a, I suppose, slightly older school driving enthusiast, I would have liked to have seen a manual option, but then comes in the question of daily driver, and if it's a daily driver, well, you really want an automatic, and this 8-speed ZF box is a particularly good automatic, so there's no reason not to be quite satisfied and content with this choice of gearbox in the car. You know, a manual will be a different driving experience, maybe in the future, who knows. I think it's quite likely that you can place a safe bet that there will be future versions of the GR Supra that arrive, but for now it's a pretty solid starting point. The thing with this is it's about balancing the entire car, the way it comes together as a package, the chassis, the suspension, the power, the whole setup of it. And one fun thing you can do, if you press the sport mode button, so I've just popped it back into normal, but if you press it into sport, you can then turn on the sport displays, which give you some information about power and torque as well as the central screen, which is kind of cool. And then using some shifts, you can start to hear more of the crackles. It's not the fastest car in the world, and I do think maybe it could have some more power, and that's something we can talk about in the future, but it's certainly not too little. You know, it's just fine for the car as delivered from factory. And the way it drives, you forget a little bit about the steering wheel being on the smaller side. It just handles well. There's a good weight to the steering. It feels consistent, it feels pointy, it feels direct, it feels correct. I think the view line thing is a little bit... So I'm not the tallest person in the world, but I think somebody a touch taller than me might feel that their view is a little bit impeded by the low roof line at the sides. But for me, it's not a problem. Feed in the power, I think it's probably more powerful than they say as well. Maybe when mine's here we can do some dyno tests and see what happens, but it's not a slouch. And at the moment, of course, I've got traction fully engaged and everything like that. You can turn it off and be a complete hooligan, and probably be a complete hooligan in style, because that's a big part of what the car is about, just having fun, just enjoying the drive, just being an enthusiast car. And you see that in the fact that there's already now something like a 1-year wait list to actually get one of these, particularly in the UK and around some of the European markets. They initially only allocated, I believe, 900 cars for the first year, 300 of which are for the UK. And out of the UK ones, only a small number are actually the A90 editions. There are only 90 A90 editions in Europe. So I'm very lucky that I was finger on the button when the sales for those opened, because it was literally, you received an email, went to the website, clicked what spec you wanted and submitted your order. So it was really a case of being right on there at the right time. Driving along though, I feel like it's a car that I can have some fun with. I can start exploring the options on the tuning front, visually, performance-wise, sound-wise. Yes, there are some pops and crackles, but it could definitely be a bit louder. I think it's not, but I'm sure there's a little bit of sound piping through the speakers, that kind of thing going on. It's not too intrusive in that respect, like some models are, where it's just completely wrong. When, let's say, you drive a diesel SUV and it sounds like a fruity petrol. That makes no sense at all. But here on these roads, right environment, right place to be driving, right car, you're sat back towards the rear axle, it just feels fun, it feels like you could moon around, have a good time, enjoy the drive. We get some of those burbles. I don't think they'll translate onto the camera microphones at all, unfortunately, but even there, it wants to dance around. The car wants to play. So, first drive in the GR Supra. Here we are, cruising along the nice twisty roads, having a pretty good time while doing it. So here's something a little bit different. We're heading out onto the motorway, so let me pop it back into normal mode to get a kind of feel of driving this car in a regular environment. You can already feel the steering actually changes. There's more give in the centre, small movements don't have as much impact, and generally the car just gets a bit softer and cruises along a little bit more. You also have, though, adaptive cruise control, which is really, really quite nice. So if I just make sure we're going the right way, which we are, and turn this on, turn on the cruise control, set it here, you know, you set your speed automatically. If you start catching up with the car in front, it will slow you down. You can turn on lane departure warning, where it will alert you if you start going over or straying over the lines. It's basically a car that you can genuinely daily drive in a very, very easy way, yet it has all of these sporty intentions and prowess when you want to drive it in that environment as well. So I think this is why it really stands out to me as an option, because it can be my daily driver while being something fun, while also being a car that I can make some modifications to, I can tune it up a little bit, I can change some bits and pieces, and I think it's a particularly interesting car in general, being this 5th generation of the Supra. The first Supra launched way back as a model of the Celica, not its own line, but obviously the fame of the Mark IV is the one that's really defined what the Toyota Supra represents, and this car is now a new generation, a new definition of that, and that's what's made it such a big talking point. And for me, that actually makes it a really interesting thing to want to experience and get to learn and get to know about. So while we just cruise along like this, it certainly proves the point that you can daily drive the car, you can stick your luggage in the back, you can cruise along, you can drive it without worry, and that's the kind of dual-sided nature of the car, with luggage in the back, as you'll see in a moment when I show you around it in a little bit more detail. So let's find somewhere where we can pull over and run through all of this tech and give a few more thoughts from my side as a future customer what I make of the new Supra. I tell you what though, just before we get back, I'm not the biggest fan of the steering feel in normal. It just feels a little bit disconnected and strange to me. Yes, that's daily driver mode, so you shouldn't be trying to drive it dynamically, but the weighting isn't quite right and it's a bit funny. But I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not going to stop me going for the car. You can always just press the button, pop it back into sport, go into manual if you wish, drop some gears, hear some crackles, enjoy the noise, enjoy the feel, and you also get a little bit of the turbo noise that you can hear out of it. It's a single turbo, a single twin scroll turbo, always have to get that right. But can you imagine what this would sound like if you, let's say, change the downpipe and put a new exhaust system on the back? Definitely wouldn't be bad, that's for sure. But as we are just cruising, let's slide it back into drive, press the sport mode button again, go back into normal. And when you're driving, by the way, you do hear a little bit of exterior noise. I'd say probably the wind noise. I think it comes from the door mirrors, maybe in the way they're placed. They are BMW mirrors, for sure, as opposed to anything else. And they do when you pop the car into reverse, or at least the passenger side one does. It dips down, which is obviously quite nice to help park and make that side of things a touch easier. But hey, I'm picking at pretty small things here, generally speaking, for cruising along. Been driving for a little bit on the main roads just to get more of a sense of it in this environment. It is all nice and easy, plain, smooth sailing. So let's continue onwards then to actually get to the interior of the car and show you all around in a bit more detail. It is time then to explore around the interior, from the dashboard to the center console, some of the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like quite so much. It is very bright outside, so I hope it's possible to see the screens, but let's start with the dashboard. A totally unique dashboard for the Supra, based on the digital display behind with the large central rev counter. You have the traditional rev counter on the outside with the needle on the digital display in the center. That's currently in the normal mode. In the center console here, you have that large sport mode button. Give a press of that and you'll see how the needle goes red, the background changes ever so slightly, and we'll be able to hear a bit of this in a second as well. But a nice taster there of the burbles that you get out of it. On the left you have your speedometer and the automatic speed recognition. On the right you have a bit more information that you can see around with these bars either side for your fuel gauge and temperature gauge over on the other side. When you start the car up, they all illuminate and they go down to where it actually is. There's a very good head-up display, if you can just about see this at the moment, giving us the speed up in front of the view, which looks kind of cool as well. So technology-wise, very, very BMW when you leave this area. In the center, you have the display here, currently showing the sport displays that we had up earlier, with the power and torque charts, the compass as well. It's a touch screen, you can go back home, you've got these tiles, you can slide it around, has access to a lot of information, and as Doug said as well, no BMW logos left inside the software at all. Just a lot of things you can go through, configure, set up, and different systems and settings and the like as you explore all around it. Everything that you see in this generation of BMW infotainment system. And if you come down, you have your air conditioning vents running across the center. Nice style behind this. The way you have that one bar that runs the full way across, I really quite like the look of that and the appearance of it. But this is where, for me, it's a bit too BMW. I would say all of these controls, the touch controls that are your hotkeys that go through the different menus you can see up top as you move your finger across them. The climate control down here, yes, it's functional, it all works, it does the job exactly as it should, but I don't know, it would have been nicer to have something a touch different, I would say. There's a little bit of storage space down here, some USB ports and charging sockets, 12-volt socket as well down that side, and a holder, and I think a wireless charging pad as well. And then you've got your 8-speed ZF gear shift, and these are controls again, all as per BMW. The iDrive controller literally lifted straight out of BMW. Nothing special or unique to this at all. Your auto stop start, your sport mode, which I'll just quickly show you when you press that. It's gone back into normal there. If I load up sport, you can configure individual, and this is where you can set damping, the steering, the engine, the transmission, or default it. So you could have it in sport mode with, say, comfortable suspension. Steering in normal mode gets a little bit weak, I have to say. The engine and transmission, very happy with those in sport though. And then you can go back. Beneath that, you've got your parking sensors, traction control, and your safety system. So when you press this, you can customize which safety systems are actually on. Going to customize settings, you can see front collision warning, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, steering intervention if you have lane departure warning on. You've got a decent amount of security systems and settings there. Then a couple of cup holders with a little bit of space in the armrest. Now in terms of the interior, on the A90 Edition you get all of these red leather touches. So on the driver's, the steering wheel, not just the driver's steering wheel, you've got the red leather grabs at the side. On the driver's door you have these red leather inserts and red pieces, whereas on the passenger side it is all black. This is by intent to focus on the driver zone. So you've got red to the left of you, you've got the red knee pad here on the center console as well. The driver zone is all red, the passenger seat is red, you've got these little silver inserts as well, and just the view to the back, by the way, you can see that there's the luggage space is all connected to the driver cabin behind the rear hatch. So the driver zone is red, the passenger zone is black, a bit of fun for the launch edition, and this car particularly highly spec'd, the carbon trim as well, which looks very nice. The general fit and feel though is pretty good. The stitching that you've got, the quality, the feel of it all is very, very nice. Just perhaps, you know, when you get here and you get to the light controls and the window and mirror controls, perhaps just a touch too BMW. Anyway, with it in sport mode, let me quickly spin the camera around so that you can take a listen to what it sounds like. Not bad, hey? Still some room to move beyond that, but not a bad sound from it at all with the crackles that it makes in the Supra. You've got a button down here to open the rear hatch. What I'm going to do is just press the start-stop button and turn it off for a moment to climb on out, because I want to talk about up here a little bit more. So I'm just going to release that, the double pull to release it. And this is going to follow on actually from these vents before we open up the bonnet, because what you spot as you look around the car, this is blocked up, that's obviously blocked up. Around the front of the car, even this area is slightly blocked up. But the idea here is that tuners can attack this. They could open this up more to let more cooling through. They could open those up to let air come through to cool the brakes. And in the engine bay, they could also install strut braces using the pre-made holes and space to support them. So you could make the car more rigid. They've literally planned for this in advance, which is kind of cool and definitely something that I'm going to have to be doing. So I would say watch this space for when mine is here in terms of the modifications and changes that can be made to it, certainly on that front. Also, if you come around towards the rear, the idea with this is the trunk of the car is actually strengthened more than it needs to be so that the car can support the weight of a wing that is installed on it. Now, we don't yet know if we'll get the TRD parts, the Toyota Racing Development parts for the UK spec cars, but they offer a lot of additional upgrade components like a lip spoiler, more aggressive diffuser, new wheels, also a side garnish in carbon skirts, and some more aggressive end plates at the front as well. So that might be an option. I'm just going to quickly show you inside the boot. There is a button to open that up on the key when the rear hatch pops open. There's no button back here to actually open it. You can't open the boot without the button either on the door or on the key. When you do open it though, there is a lot of space back here. We've got two pretty big suitcases in here at the moment, a couple of other bags. You can take out the shelf, and then it's a through load all the way through the car. But what's strange is the really narrow opening. Now, daily driver It's not like an SUV, it's not a car that's necessarily putting practicality first, but it would be a little bit awkward to get something quite big in there, and I think that might turn out to be a frustration, but it's not stopping me, or not on its own putting me off buying the car, we could say. In general though, the rear, if I just close this back down, in my mind looks stunning. The shape of the lights inside the LEDs, if I just blink them, maybe you can just about see it in the light today, where you get the blinkers going on there and the illumination of the red. There we go, look at that. Really, really cool profile and signature of the car that you get out of the shape of those lights and the way they're cut. I just really think that's very, very nice. And then down at the back, you've got the reversing light in the center, kind of Formula One rain light style, and obviously these pretty beefy exhaust tailpipes. The back of the car is super aggressive. I think it's a really, really cool angle. GR, Gazoo Racing, emphasis on that. Supra developed by Gazoo Racing as opposed to a regular Toyota project, so to speak. Exciting things coming in the future as well. And generally in terms of the design, the way it bulges out around the arches, the way you have that double bubble style shape over the roof, the way the A-pillars are in gloss black, which just, I think, emphasises the sportiness of it. I think the whole look of the car overall is actually really pretty nice, and I think if you imagine this with some additional tuning parts installed on it as well, it's only going to get better. So the future from that perspective with the Shmeemobile when it arrives is very, very exciting. Now I'm expecting that UK cars are going to start in the autumn, maybe September, that kind of time, and fingers crossed mine will be quite an early one, so I'll let you know more about it when that comes. But for a first drive today, I've been really very impressed. It's opened my eyes as well to what I can do with the car, and although it's an A90 Edition, I don't think I'm going to be able to resist. I suspect some modifications and tuning is going to be done, but overall as a package you can't complain. It's just over £50,000 in the UK for the car, and at that price point you're getting a lot of car for the money. Yes, there's no manual, but I wouldn't have gone for a manual. Yes, it's a big partnership with BMW. I don't mind that. That's a benefit. That comes with lots of technology and makes it an even better car. Yes, it's built in Austria, not in Japan. Again, it's built actually at the same plant as my G63, which is kind of cool as well. Overall, yeah, what's to complain really? It's a fantastic car. I cannot wait for it to arrive. It's not going to be all that long now, but today a first ever drive in the A90 Edition for me, and what an experience it was. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you to Toyota for the opportunity as well. But that's it for now. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers.